My name's Rob Guglielmo, and I live here, and I teach high school in Westerly. My wife lives here. My two daughters are home from college, so they're here too this summer. We're having the people from the hospice. I'm setting up an area over here, a place for them to sit. My father ran a hospice for a number of years, and he died this past fall. So we've asked the people from the local hospice if they'd like to come and sit and perhaps read or talk or just sit and look. The property goes down to the water, so if they're in good shape and they think they can make the walk, they can walk down to the pond and sit and have a quiet moment, perhaps. So the orange ones are sort of an ode to my years living on the cliff in San Diego. We used to live in Sunset Cliffs, and it overlooked the Pacific, where there were quite a number of poppies that grew. So we've let a lot of them go here. And what's nice is they go to seed and they come back in relatively the same spots. But I don't really care where they come back because they're really pretty. They add a nice splash of color to everything. As you can see against the butterfly bush. It's really, and it doesn't require any work. You know, these roses as well, they should be coming out in a couple of days. And mint, I like to let mint just go because it smells so nice and you don't have to care for it, and it's nice ground cover. And I found that with a lot of things, that if you just let things grow, you don't have to do as much mulching. Just let the ground cover take over. And that can come in many forms and many different heights. Isn't it pretty out there? And it's very, very diverse, and it's filled with birds all year round, and they're protected a little bit from a lot of the raptors. Unless you get a little Cooper's hawk that comes down here, or a sharp-shinned hawk, it's harder for the big raptors to get down into the lower canopy. Although sometimes you'll find a hawk or a goshawk coming through here. All right, so I could talk about each. I don't want to bore you with the details, but I'm trying to create a garden in here, and everything is sort of in the midst of transition. As you can see, I've torn down a couple of stone walls, and I'm not yet done facing this, but I've planted a small garden here just for vegetables. I put some small prostrate pines here and a black ornamental Japanese pine here. And this sort of grand old lady, Nukagensis, is a real special, beautiful tree. I enjoy its shape quite a bit. This is a very fairly rare beech tree, and it will have a 120-foot span someday, but won't get any taller. And they're all about in a part of southern Germany, but that's about the only place that they grow. I got it from a guy in Boston. So that's called a parasol beech, Fagus sylvatica tortuosa. And over here, I have some more prostrate plants and some ornamental Chinese, and here's some creeper. And if you come back here, we have here some raspberry and blueberry behind it. And if you watch your footing here, there's I got this a number of years ago from my great uncle, who's the head of the Chestnut Society in Michigan. And at the University of Michigan and the University of Maryland, they're trying to bring back American chestnut. And I think this is about 99% on the spot, so to speak. And that's a clethra, there's spicebush. And here's the other one that I had, and then there's some Dutchman's pipe. I have some lilac, oak leaf hydrangea. So this is indigenous to the area. This is coastal azalea, a little bit beyond its flowering time. And we have some quince. And if you want to perhaps sneak in here, so this is, every time I get some flowers, I throw them in here for the most part. As you can see, it's somewhat colorful now. So our neighbors raise bees, and we do our best here to try to accommodate them. So there are a lot of small prostrate trees. Again, this is an Arizona cedar. This is some flax and some different types of roses. This is a beautiful, rather unusually shaped, and the leaf is rather peculiar, of a Japanese maple. And the one behind it with the white leaf, that too is a Japanese maple that doesn't like much sun. And I bonsai'd that white cedar a bit throughout the years. I've cut its roots down low with an axe to try to control it a little bit, and it seems healthy. And I trim it up just about every year. And out here we have fringe tree. Over there's Acer japonicum vitifolium. This is aconitifolium. And they're cut leaf. They're spectacular specimens for the fall. And over here we have the remnants of what was once a stable stone wall. We try to keep these old trees healthy. I climb up just about every one, maybe 25 feet with a pole saw, so it creates an airy environment where the air moves. And this is my garden where I've put aside just some little favorites that I enjoy. So a lot of false cypress, pine, Chinese pine, mountain laurel, cedar. This is, I planted this a number of years ago over here. That's an American fir. Those were all cut down by the colonists or for floorboards some time ago. This is a buckeye. Again, I have a lot of different types of rhododendrons and 15 different Japanese maples. This is probably the most sensitive one. These are the most sensitive of all. They can handle no direct sunlight. This one's the most. It's so paper thin. It's really an exquisite color. And this is a shagbark hickory that I planted. Here's some false cypress. And that fir was planted about 15 years ago. So I planted it in the shade so it grows slow and with tight rings. There's some catalpa. And of course, copper beech and fernleaf beech here. And some Himalayan pine. Echinanthus. So this is a Bechtel crab and limelight, hydrangea, a few different types of hydrangea in here. This is a weeping European beech. And we were able to get quite a selection of rhododendron that's all sort of in the backdrop here. Some of it's just blooming now, particularly the hybrids can bloom this late. The Maximus is the latest, won't bloom until July 4th weekend. And that's the one that's indigenous to the area. So these are white oak. This one I struggled dearly with. I got it out of a garbage a long time ago, and I brought it back to life. It's just a magnificent Japanese maple, and there are quite a few of them around. I won't bore you with the details. Here I have 4 prostrate trees. There's one there. That's a Camperdown elm. Over there, there's cherry here. More false cypress in the front. These are some old stones cut down in Westerly. And all around the property, I have very, very old stones from a variety of places, most notably the Frito-Lay mill. They tore it down a number of years ago. It was the last mill that they tore down in Fall River, and I bought about 20 ton of it, and I'll show you what I did with it.
Can you explain, is this a vegetable garden?
So this is just a little vegetable garden. I struggled with how I would go about providing it enough sunlight, so I guess I was too sympathetic to that black oak and this white oak to cut these down to allow for more sunlight. So it's almost just sitting here until I figure out what exactly I want to do with it. Since I do all the work myself, moving these is no walk in the park. My good friend George Hill helps out down the... So this is where it transitions from oak to all maple. This hardwood swamp goes all the way down to Green Hill Pond. There's about 12 acres from street to street, so it's a sizable enough piece of property for a lot of birds, salamanders, and what have you. And this is a bit of a shade garden. And I don't mulch anymore like I really used to. I pretty much just let the leaves fall where they may at this point. And you know, I found that that's had a positive effect, just using leaves, and things tend to fill out more and they tend to be healthier. I built these stone walls a number of years ago. Isn't it pretty?
This is unbelievable.
So a couple of times a year I'll cut back here, but not too often. And I really try to stay out of the swamp all times other than the winter. Here's some pyracantha. Again, some pines, and here are those stones that I was speaking of, cut by the Portuguese and the Italians sometime in the late 1800s. Probably as early as 1880 they were cut. And it's always fun to work with them, but they're heavier than perhaps one might imagine. And these twin oaks, perhaps they're the biggest trees on the property, so I think they may have been here, probably small saplings during the hurricane of '38. And all this area out here, I oversee, as well as a good friend of mine who works as a wildlife biologist, and we've introduced a few things in here, and it is healthy, and it's no longer a drunken forest. Everything's starting to stand up straight. We've taken just about all of the invasive species out of here. It's a very laborious task, I guess, in some regard, but in others it's kind of gives you something to do in the winter. And some more false cypress. I've got a thing for Chamaecyparis. I really enjoy their color and their texture. And some old cobblestones I used in a few places here. Oh, here comes, look at the fog roll down there. Got them from an old rail yard, so they weren't that expensive. But I had to buy 12 ton, so it took a little bit of time to set them, and I've got to tear them up at some point, reset them. But I enjoy all the stonework. It's not much of a inconvenience. I really enjoy working with stone, and as you can see, wood.
Wow. I don't know how you do all this.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And I just as soon be alone, so the birds and the critters are around, and my wife's around, and my kids are around.
That's all you need.
Those in my books. Here, my wife and I moved here from San Diego, so immediately I wanted to get started doing something. I am kind of a busybody, so I thought working with stone. And my mother worked for the Sisters of Mercy, and they had a connection with a granite guy many years ago, and they delivered me 10 ton of granite, so I thought I'd try walls. And it just became a thing that I really like to do. We used to have a wall right here that I tore down. We had a wall right there that I've torn down, and 2 walls there that I've torn down. So, you know, stone isn't always easy to work with when you've got heaving ground, and
Yeah.
but oh, thank you so much for coming and for supporting the Charlestown community, and particularly everybody at the Charlestown Library.